Just a mile from my office in Wilmslow, Cheshire, and just a brisk walk from my own home is a 5-bed Victorian semi. And fixed to its red brick facade is a blue plaque that reads, "Alan Turing, founder of computer science and cryptographer, whose work was key to breaking the wartime Enigma codes, lived and died there." That was 64 years ago. And we're still admiring him, his work, his legacy. In his day, Turing was one of the few futurists. He had the ability to look beyond what was probable to what one day might be possible. And he had the power to identify potential and apply it in ways that his contemporaries could not imagine. Strange to think that Turing's achievements have gone down to history, when his discoveries and his ideas were created barely a lifetime ago. I think we've come so far in such a short space of time. In one of my favorite museums, the Manchester Museum of Science and Industry, is Baby. Developed in 1948, it was the first computer to store and to run a program. And yet this is a machine that would fill all of our living rooms, and yet it had less power and capability than the iPhones or the Samsungs in our pockets. So what does all this have to do with me as the UK Information Commissioner? We're responsible for upholding rights of individuals to keep control of their personal information. Well, the most significant risks to our privacy and our data protection are now driven by the use of new technologies. And I think the revelations over the last few days involving Facebook and Cambridge Analytica and political campaigns is a dramatic case in point. But at the ICO, we're also dealing with a rise in cyber attacks as well, and cross-device tracking, and of course, the rise in the use of artificial intelligence, big data, and machine learning. These technologies use huge volumes of personal data from a wide range of sources, making decisions and providing insights about individuals. And cloud computing platforms enable the storage and processing power to be used at scale. So AI is not the future. AI is the now. New facial recognition tools are being used in law enforcement. And I'll be blogging about that soon. Watch that space. The credit and financial sectors are already using social scoring techniques. So the ability of AI to intrude into private life and to affect human behavior by manipulating personal data makes highlighting the importance of this topic a priority for the ICO. So my office has a significant role to play. I've often spoken about how privacy and innovation need to go hand in hand. And as technological developments progress so rapidly, I'm duty-bound to stand up for the rights of UK citizens. And I will not allow the right to privacy, the fundamental right to privacy, to be carried away on a wave of process. In another 64 years from now, individuals will look back at what we did today. Not just at the nuts and bolts of our inventions, but they're going to look at the steps that we took to ensure that they were used in ways that were fair and were ethical and moral. They're going to expect us to have looked at the risks, mitigated them, and in turn protected individuals and the broader society. Winston Churchill famously said, "Those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And history has much to teach us. We do know that once the genie is out of the bottle, that it's darn near impossible to shove him back in. And our history books are full of examples of good inventions doing bad things, or great discoveries that ran amok in ways that no one foresaw. And when the Curies discovered radium, radium was hailed as a wonder. It was used in cosmetics and toys and novelty watches and toothpaste. And even when it became clear that radium was responsible for sickness and even death, corporations seemed loath to take it off the market. So where was the concern for the public? And what should have been done differently? If we had known that the internet would be used to sell illegal drugs and create a dark web where terrorists would flourish, could we have been more cautious? Okay, we can't know what we don't know. But I think history has taught us that there are repercussions, that there are consequences, and it's our job to search out what they might be and act before it's too late. History has its eyes on us. Today, we benefit from the wisdom of many futurists, notably the late Stephen Hawking, who said AI is the road to dystopia. Yuval Harari, AI will make bystanders of us all. Ray Kurzweil, the American author and inventor, who says AI will outsmart us all by the middle of this century. I'm a futurist too, and I'm excited about how AI is already enriching our lives, how it is a lever for our economy, how it has the potential to improve our health, transport, economics, law enforcement, research, education. It's part of everything that we do. But I'm also trying to predict how AI will impact on the privacy of individuals. So algorithms are not new. Ever since the first shampoo bottle instructed us to wash, rinse, and repeat, we've been using a formula to reach a conclusion. What's different and what's changed is the volume of personal data, the velocity at which it can be processed, and most importantly, the value attached to it. And organizations are slurping it up. So my office must be a triple threat. I need the law. Regulation is where the power is. But in order to exercise that power, the regulator also has to understand ethics and has to understand technology. Let's start with the law. A lot has changed in the last 20 years since the data protection law was forged, and soon, as we heard this morning, there's a new law in town, the General Data Protection Regulation. And I think with the GDPR, it's a much needed modernization that gives us the right tools, not perfect tools, Sandra, the right tools to tackle the challenges ahead. I think its considerable focus on new technologies reflects the concerns that legislators have in the UK and throughout Europe about the personal and the societal effect of powerful data processing technologies like AI and profiling and automated decision making. So the GDPR enhances people's ability to challenge decisions made by machines. It provides a measure of algorithmic transparency, and I take it that we need to figure that out. It provides for human intervention in decisions that are most relevant to our lives. Shopping recommendations generated by machines, not a big deal. Being eligible for a certain school, a career promotion, or a medical treatment, get a human involved. Accountability and transparency are really the driving forces in the GDPR. The rules of transparency and fairness have not changed since the 1998 Act, but organizations are now obliged to account for what they do, why, and how they do it. So when I think about AI, my office is unlikely to have an issue with narrow AI designed to solve a specific problem using defined data sets. So that type of AI can be compliant with data protection law. AI that's opaque, on the other hand, gives rise to questionability of fairness because the actions being taken cannot be readily shown. It crosses the red line if it can't be explained. And I think if a developer can't explain what an algorithm is looking for, how it works, or how a decision was reached, it's not transparent. So how can that be fair? The GDPR also embeds the concept of data protection by design, which is an essential tool in minimizing privacy risks, but also building trust. GDPR embeds data protection impact assessments, which will be compulsory in certain circumstances, and in some cases will have to be pre-approved by my office. And the GDPR increases and intensifies my regulatory armory, from issuing warnings or reprimands to fining those who deliberately, consistently, or negligently flout the law of up to £17 million or 4% of global turnover, whichever is greater. I can issue a stop processing order to an organization which may be more significant than a fine. So yes, this regulator will have sharper teeth, but I prefer the bark to the bite, and my office is committed to prevention over punishment. So yes, there is enforcement, but encouragement and engagement and education must all come first. Because at the heart of all of this is the public, is people. And in the end, it comes down to building trust and confidence that organizations that handle our personal data are doing it fairly and in line with the law. If you understand and commit to that, then compliance will follow. So I have the law to back me up, but without a solid understanding of new technologies, my office is not relevant and our authority is weakened. I would say that we're on our way to being an innovative regulator, but I admit that we have more work to do. There are particular challenges ahead around things like auditing algorithms, and we will undoubtedly require specialist resources to be able to build that program. But we are progressing rapidly. We've just published our first technology strategy that outlines how the ICO is going to adapt to technological change as it impacts our information rights and how we'll plan ahead for the arrival of new technologies. Understanding how tech affects information rights is not just a niche area for the ICO or just the responsibility of one department. So yes, my new technology policy department is going to spearhead a lot of this work, but this is a thread that has to run through all of the work of the ICO. AI is one of the top 3 priorities for our office in 2018-2019, and we're kicking off our new technology fellowship program with a 2-year postdoctoral appointment to investigate and research the impact of AI on data privacy. I've spoken before about the ICO's introductory model of a regulatory sandbox, and that will enable organizations to come to us to beta test their new innovations and products and services, get our advice and support before launching those services to the public. And we're consulting on our sandbox this year. I should say that we're not coming at this from a standing start. Our Big Data and AI paper, which we updated in September, has enjoyed widespread acclaim. And that paper addresses societal implications of the technological age. And that brings me to data ethics. This is a subject that fascinates me. I spoke at length at the Tech UK Data Ethics Summit in December last year, but I think that subject is still in its infancy. My new head of technology, Nigel Holden, came to us a few months ago from Wrexham Glyndŵr University, and in his team of 14, only one had a PhD in data ethics. So I think as a community, we're good at the doing, but we're not necessarily as good at the thinking. So here's what I think. The world of data protection law and data ethics is not sitting, they're not sitting in separate universes. But there are broader questions beyond the law. And we're all working to define the gaps and address the outstanding questions. I like to think that my office is sagacious in this space, but I'm not so naive as to fail to recognize the need for a broader debate and a broader conversation across many sectors and society. And there's a lot of key players in this space, not least the Alan Turing Institute, whom we have enjoyed, my office has enjoyed a close working relationship, but also the Royal Society and the British Academy, the Nuffield Foundation, academics, and parliamentarians. I'm enthused by the introduction of a Center for Data Ethics and Innovation, as announced by the Secretary of State, Matt Hancock, in December. It's a £9 million plan to make the UK the best place in the world for businesses developing AI to start, to grow, to thrive. So we're learning from the past to inform our present and shape our future. Using the law to keep tech in check and making the most of ethical discussion and debate. But for me, there's another key component, and that comes down to public trust and confidence. AI offers a world of pure imagination. Some say it's a wonder, it's exciting, its capabilities may be beyond our wildest dreams. But we can't afford to go crazy like a kid in the candy shop. There are serious questions about the use of data and whether it's acceptable in one context, but not in another. We have to consider the right to autonomy and privacy and understand the way that opaque AI algorithms interpret personal data can't be addressed by legislation alone. So as I've said, there's broader questions here beyond the law. Even if it's legal, is it the right thing to do? How do we use anonymized data ethically? And how do we regulate information that's derived from personal data, such as in medical records? What can we do to spot what's coming up on the technological horizon? And how can we draw together information and analysis from a wide range of disciplines and resources, not just the regulatory ones? So I have an eye on the future, and I think everyone in this room does too. But we can and we will get the public policy right. I think the UK has a competitive advantage because It's an established and recognized leader in this space. The principles of data protection and data ethics are firmly embedded in our legal framework. But we're at a race to the top with economies like Japan and France and Singapore that are really focused on AI and digital. This is not a machine versus human battle. It's a defining moment which requires a sense of responsibility and a long-term view. Future generations will thank us if the way in which we develop artificial intelligence today looks at the true value it can deliver while respecting data protection and ethical principles. Thank you very much.